All right, phronemo analysis. Webinar 2. What are we calling the second webinar? Let's see, okay. Phronemo analysis, webinar 2, echoes, Anakalutha, the drive, and the unconscious. Echoes, Anakalutha, the drive, and the unconscious. Here is the first poem of Webinar 2, The Spice. He'd thought he could make the basic unit of his poetry the breathed rhyme or echo, any repetition of either sound or meaning, and describe every move in poetry. But he'd forgotten about Anakaluthan, overthrow of order, the non sequitur, the anti-echo. Anakaluthan, the spice of echoic verse, the flugelhorn's highest mellow notes. Dream broccoli fuzzily if I mountains, the green human, the deep down in you abysm. All right, now here are some symbols, some of the symbols of phronemo analysis. This is a recording, so sound recording, so there's no way to see any of these symbols, but the echo, which is the basic unit of my poetry and of existence, really, of language. The echo is signified by a capital E, and the echoed, which is the concept in your mind that the echo or word, the sound of the word, signifies. The echoed is the concept that's signified by a lowercase e. So you have the capital E and the lowercase e, and the algorithm of the echo is that the echo is more, it's primary, and the echoed is secondary. This is signified by a capital E and then a bar over the lowercase e, capital E, and then beneath the bar you have the lowercase e. Then you've got some symbols for the master echo, the chain of slave echoes, signifying chain, the master echo organizes and produces the chain of slave echoes. I mean, this will be clear in the book or whatever, the text of phronemo analysis, whenever that is available. Then you have the empty set, the power set, some mathematical symbols. Anakaluthan, which is also known as the event or the anti-echo. This is signified by a special uppercase A. There's a logical formula here that explains how the Anakaluthan is not included in the state of a situation. The state of the situation being the way that Badiou describes, the echoic situation. The echoic situation, all of the relations within an echoic situation are the state of the situation. You've got the imaginary and the symbolic are symbolized by a special uppercase I, a special uppercase S. And then you've got the imaginary, symbolic, and anakoluthon triad. That's an important graph. It shows how they overlap, the imaginary and the symbolic, and then you have the anakoluthon, which is equivalent to the event in Badiou's ontology and the real in Lacanian psychoanalysis. So you got the imaginary, the symbolic, and the anakoluthon. That's the three registers of reality. And then you got another graph, and this graph basically it's the state of a situation, the situation itself, and these are circled, and then outside of the circles you have the weird uppercase A, and that signifies the anakoluthon as being not included within the state of a situation, which is okay. So, with all of those symbols, all those symbols behind us. Now, with all those symbols behind us, we can move on to the second poem of the second webinar of Phronimo Analysis. My poetry is made of breathed echoes and breathed anakolutha. It's a revision of my poetic statement from the first webinar. My poetry is made of breathed echoes, but also breathed anakolutha. The echoes, as I said in the previous webinar, are any repetition of sound or sense, rhyme, alliteration, consonance, meter, which repeats a rhythm, and I have shown how irony, metonymy, metaphor, paradox, how the tropes are echoes. These echoes are twofoldly echoic. One, they echo the world, and two, they echo each other in a chain. And now for some explanation of anakolutha. The anakolutha are also twofold. They're twofoldly anti-echoic. First, instead of echoing the world, anakoluthon has been redefined to include perceptual hallucinations and misuse of language, so it's misrepresenting the world, an anti-echo of the world. So when you see a UFO in the sky where there is absolutely no UFO, that hallucination is an anakoluthon, as I have redefined the rhetorical term. And the second way that anakolutha are anti-echoic is that anakoluthon breaks the chain of echoes. This can happen at the conceptual level, at the level of individual words, and at the level of sound. May Day Parade, for example, in its echoing the A sound, May Day Parade, is not an anakoluthon. It is purely echoic. But in the phrase May Day Parade Rainbow, the bow is an anakoluthon, as I have redefined it. It breaks the chain of echoes. So, my poetry is made of breathed echoes and breathed anakolutha. But, dig this, my Phronimo analysts. Anakoluthon, just as the Lacanian real is impossible, anakoluthon is impossible, and there are only echoes. I can try to introduce an anakoluthon into my poetry, into my speech, but there will always be in some way an echo at the level, perhaps, of sound. At some level, there is always an echo. So Anakoluthon is impossible. There is no Anakoluthon. Phronimoanalysis. Phronimoanalysis. Phronimoanalytics. So phronimoanalysis combines the drives, the death drive, the life drive. These drives in Freudian, Lacanian psychoanalysis are combined by phronimoanalysis into one drive. Eros and Thanatos in one. One drive. The commercial drive. Plutos. The commercial drive. It's zombivalent. It's life and it's death. Life drive and death drive. Zombivalent. Ambivalent as the zombie toward the Anakoluthon event. Because you see, the Anakoluthon is an event in the Badiouian sense, when it breaks the chain of what is possible within the state of a situation, an echoic situation. You see? So, the commercial drive is zombivalent toward the real, or toward the Anakoluthon. And this poem is about that commercial drive. And by the way, the commercial drive is represented in phronimoanalysis by a circle. It's a circular street commercial drive. Sun, study the circle, my commercial drive. The looped street, human greed, eternized in the tongue of some German tribe, the current rhyme heard through the eyes, struggling to touch his unwordable mind, his structure spun, a turbine. So, let's move on. Here's some information about the unconscious, which I don't know if I'll include it in the text, but it'll be good for the webinar. The unconscious I describe in phronimoanalysis as an oceanic matrix of echoes. The unconscious of phronimoanalysis is similar to Lacan's. We just call signifiers echoes. The signified is an echoed, and the referent is always impossible, an Anakoluthon, really. So echoes are aligned with the symbolic, echoeds are aligned with the imaginary, and referents are aligned with the Anakoluthon. Phronimoanalysis defines people, subjects, as corporations, and there is no death drive or life drive in phronimoanalysis. There is only the zombie commercial drive, Plutos, symbolized as a street. Commercial drive, looped, a circle. Those are just like my notes on some crucial points about my theory. So this poem is called The Drive, and it is a further illustration of the commercial drive, how it operates, how the commercial drive drives us. Ever radiantly the red rose, yesterday's echo, again engines awakening in genuine pain and glee. Structures in the risen sun, an orange sign of construction, walking to tweets from the rooftops, a slave to Plutos, the drive. 9:11 a.m., the time again and again. Ignobly the flaneur, as magnolia flowers fallen from the tree upon the street. The sign's echoes walk by. Dead crow, winter priest in of the Anakoluthon, walk by ethically do not desire compromisedly raised meats, ethically raised meats, organic produce, the Grandview Park cenotaph, your passage marked in red by hand, circling these slowly rotting wooden doors, the People's Co-op bookstore, the Tim Hortons Humanity Pact, and seeking so important satisfaction. But the drive is endlessly the struggle forth toward a transaction. See these sativa gummies in the palm of your hand again. Ever radiantly the red rose, yesterday's echo, again. Engines awakening in genuine pain and glee. Structures in the risen sun, an orange sign of construction. And it continues in a loop, because it's the drive. The commercial drive is a loop. It's an eternal drive. So dig this. It's a more phronemo analysis, more crucial notes on phronemo analysis. Anacoluthon. Dig. Anacoluthon is impossible. There are only echoes of the drive circlingly misrepresenting the Anacoluthon. Only echoes of the commercial drive. Only echoes of the commercial drive circling and misrepresenting the Anacoluthon, i.e. the Anacoluthon event. Here's a poem on the poet's relationship with the unconscious. The bottle spun as the glass of his model of a romantic ship, lost under crashing waves, bombastic words, the sophist, subtle, a master of the Platonic cuddle, Socratic his gaze, black the waves, unconscious his papillae, taste theirs on the aft side of his caique. Awash in it, the oceanic matrix of echoes, the unconscious, they get textual on the deck. Really an incredible poem about the unconscious. The bottle spun as the glass of his model of a romantic ship, lost under crashing waves, bombastic words, the sophist subtle, a master of the Platonic cuddle, Socratic his gaze, black the waves, unconscious his papillae, taste theirs on the aft side of his caique, awash in it an oceanic matrix of echoes, the unconscious, they get textual on the deck. Another poem. Listen to this one if you want to understand phronemo-analytic theory. Microphonic these, lights aglow beyond the leaves. The white old long limousine as the novel Ulysses gone, and who misses such reading? Into the jungle receding under the greenery, reading through the leaves, into his speech. Human each, we confuse his meanings with the music of his being. Jung couldn't really think. The Leica unconscious language is structured. Biting the pop filter, say these tough words. And now, these are some words that have appeared in this webinar, which I will remind you is called Echoes, Anakalutha, the Drive and the Unconscious. So here they are again, in a summary of webinar 2. Anakaluthon is impossible. There are only echoes, as the phronemo analyst defines echo. There are only echoes. No Anakaluthon. Anakaluthon is impossible. There are only echoes of the commercial drive, circling, misrepresenting the Anakaluthon. The unconscious results from this circuit of the echoes of the commercial drive. And now, to conclude, here is a poem against imagism. Against imagism. It's a poem about imagism, and it's inspired by Lacan's theory of the image. Against imagism. Against imagism. Lacan's theory of the image, it ties the image to narcissism. I think it disproves the poetic movement, imagism. You see, because words, the material of poetry, are of the symbolic register and not the imaginary where images are. You see, so imagism is not viable as a poetics, right? The signifier is primary. So we need a signifierism, not an imagism. A poetry emphasizing the physical properties of languages, their sounds. But because phronemo analysis uses, instead of the term signifier, the term echo, I have tied Lacan's symbolic order, or my symbolic order now. I've tied the symbolic to the mythological character Echo. And I've associated Narcissus with the imaginary register. Just as Lacan associates the imaginary with narcissism. So, here is my poem against imagism. Other-oriented, wet-word, in his rainy poem, Echo, and her symbols, echoes, sound of sisterhood, her soul's ground. Words, not images, were the material of poetry. Echoes, and never the echoed. Narcissus and his image, and echoed. Narcissus and his image dancing, partly lit. The definition of fascism. The ego in its imaginary. See Echo, splashy. So Narcissus here, he's associated with fascism because the imaginary and identifying with the imaginary, the ego, the image, it's fascist. It's fascist. Whereas the symbolic register and where I've placed Echo, the symbolic, it's other oriented, and that's just better than the imaginary. The imaginary. Yeah. So the third webinar is going to be on the mental disorder I've discovered called phronemophrenia. So prepare yourself psychologically, psychoanalytically, phronemoanalytically for that. In the meantime, while you're waiting for the third webinar, I would suggest really, really closely studying this second webinar. Yeah, that's what you should do. Phronemo analysis, phronemophrenia, phronemoanalytical echolocation. There is no Anacoluthon. There is no Anacoluthon, only echoes. Echoing the Anacoluthon. 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 Echoing the Anacoluthon.